to like it.
I'm afraid.
Don't be afraid.
No. Be afraid.
Darius would like a glass of water when you have a moment.
Welcome to the show for Curiously Curated Films. I'm Jason.
And I'm Christen.
And this is our grab bag of horror mini film fest. 5 horror movies that we just sort of picked randomly and haven't actually arranged into a film festival yet. But they are the Teddy Perkins episode from Atlanta, Mirror Mirror from 1990, the classics Carrie and Rosemary's Baby, and The Fly.
So yeah, let's talk about Teddy Perkins first, and then
I was how would you show this if you were gonna, if you had these 5 movies and you had to present them? What order would you put them in?
like Teddy Perkins, Rosemary's Baby, Mirror Mirror, Carrie, The Fly. What do you think?
I think that's great.
Okay.
I actually had the idea of it going Teddy Perkins first and ending The Fly. Also, I think those are good bookends. Going from, in my mind, it was sort of the least gross and the most atmospheric to the most gross.
Yeah.
And then mine was going from Teddy Perkins to Mirror Mirror, because Mirror Mirror's a little more fun, a little less involved, and that transitions into Carrie because we're going from like Teddy Perkins is kind of, there's an antique involved. Mirror Mirror, there's a haunted antique involved, and high school girls' locker rooms and killings and stuff.
I like this.
To Carrie,
Mm-hmm.
and then from Carrie, I thought Rosemary's Baby would be kind of fitting.
And then you ended with The Fly. I love how that wound up so close.
Yeah. All right, so real quick, the synopsis for these movies. Teddy Perkins is the 6th episode of the 2nd season of the show Atlanta. It aired in 2018. It is an episode of a TV show, but it was filmed and presented kind of like a mini movie. It's about 39 minutes long. And when the network aired it, they aired it without commercials. So just showed it straight through to hold the tension and hold the suspense and scary nature of that episode. And it stands alone. You can just watch it without knowing the show. Atlanta's a great show and you should watch the whole thing. But without any other context, it still makes sense. It's about this guy, Darius, who goes to a remote mansion to pick up a piano belonging to the late jazz musician Benny Hope. But when he gets there, he meets a pale stranger whose unsettling motives keep him detained. And he has to figure out, is this some kind of sick joke by a weirdo, or is there some kind of evil at play? And then the next we talk about is 1990s Mirror Mirror, which is about a shy teenager, Megan, who moves to a new town and quickly becomes the most unpopular girl in high school. But when she starts to communicate with a mysterious mirror, her tormentors meet with horrifying accidents. And the question is the mirror a reflection of Megan's own inner demons, or has she unwittingly opened a doorway of the damned? I love these synopses. I'm sure almost everyone's seen Carrie, but if you haven't, it's about an awkward, telekinetic teenage girl whose lonely life is dominated by relentless bullying at school and an oppressive religious fanatic mother at home. When her tormentors pull a humiliating prank at the senior prom, she unleashes horrifying chaos on everyone, leaving nothing but destruction in her wake.
Favorite movie ever. Love it so much. Maybe not ever, but like every Halloween for like my entire life.
So your entire life. So we're going to get into it more.
Since I was like 15. Yeah.
So when you were looking ahead to high school, you were looking ahead to Carrie one way.
I mean, it's a long story that we'll get to when we discuss it, but it was junior high for me that stuff started happening. So
when it was time to learn about the birds and the bees, you were like, "Oh, I already know. I saw Carrie."
Our junior high and high school kids awful? Yeah, I already know. But like I didn't need to see Carrie to find out.
Agreed. The next movie is Rosemary's Baby, which high school kids are bad. Let's talk about old people. Rosemary and her struggling actor husband move to a New York City apartment building and are welcomed by their overbearing elderly neighbors. When Rosemary becomes pregnant, she becomes increasingly isolated, and the neighbors' diabolical intentions are revealed. And then last on the list is The Fly from 1986.
So gross.
When Seth Brundle makes a scientific breakthrough in teleportation, he decides to test it on himself. Unbeknownst to him, a common housefly manages to get inside the device, and the two become fused into one. And it is
Woo.
so fucking gross.
It's so gross.
It's so Cronenberg.
It's so Cronenberg.
Cronenberg
I can't
is
wait
a
to discuss
style.
all of these. I can't wait to discuss them all. They're so good. Teddy Perkins first.
Teddy Perkins first.
Michael Jackson horror is what it is. That's what it is. Like I've never seen any other piece of art tackle it so directly without ever naming it, and I feel like they get it more accurately because they don't say this is Michael Jackson, but like everybody knows that's exactly what it is. And like it's an interesting. I don't know how you felt when you were watching through it, but like I've watched Community 20,000 times, so I recognize Donald Glover's eyes behind the white mask immediately, which made it a really fucking eerie thing to watch. Because like here's this guy that I know is a black guy dressed up in white face paint, which is really not that different from where Michael Jackson was.
And a totally different nose, different cheekbones.
Yeah.
I think part of the eeriness was that recognizability, was that like, this is Donald Glover under makeup, right? And it really is, and you can't miss it, but it's so thick. And I bring that up because I don't know if you Googled any more about Teddy Perkins and saw that Teddy Perkins made an appearance at the 2018 Primetime Emmy Awards.
No, I didn't see that.
And there are pictures of Teddy Perkins there, like big group shots, and he's there with Lakeith Stanfield and with Donald Glover. And you see it's neither one of them showed up in makeup, so it's obviously it's a third person came in that makeup. And the makeup's so good that it looks like Donald Glover's face under prosthetics. So then you see him standing next to Donald Glover. You're like, okay, which just I think was part of the plan on a larger scale for the art of this piece. It is a work of art, a standalone episode that is a work of art. The idea that Teddy Perkins' identity is a little bit sketchy because you don't know if Teddy Perkins is actually the other character in the movie, his supposed brother, Benny Hope, who was the real musician, and Teddy never made it, or what. And now this person has showed up in real life, and it's not the actor you thought it was in this real life stunt.
It shouldn't be like the approach that they took to it in Atlanta specifically. I mean, Atlanta's already got that kind of uncanny valley vibe to a lot of it, but the Lynchian approach, which I know this is a comparison people have made to Atlanta a lot, but I think it's accurate. It's a Lynchian approach to things that are normal, and it just sort of in the tone, in the silences in between the lines, like the weird little pauses. Like I think it's Darius that sees the drop of blood on the piano, and it just like it's such a simple little thing. It shouldn't be so fucking creepy, but it is. Like the silence of it and the like silhouette of it, the way it's highlighted, fuck.
Yeah, I think that whole episode taps into it. It reminds me kind of even of other movies have done that well, like Misery or Get Out, where you somehow get isolated with this other person. It could be such a conventional interaction, but then little things are off, or little characterizations in the other person are off, and now you're kind of just wanting to get out. At least he has every opportunity to leave at first.
Yeah.
But he's stuck there because he's come to collect a piano. Right. And then I think that is a wonderful device for building up tension, is because we can sit there going, just leave, man. Just leave. Just go.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, but we know why he's not, because he drove all this way, rented a van to pick up a piano, and he's willing to compromise and compromise and compromise and let this get drawn out more and more and more. And it's very relatable situations where you feel like, I should have left so much sooner.
But it's such a good deal on a piano. Like I kind of get it, and I love that Yeah, there's that certain type of horror that approaches it from sort of I mean, if you could just buy a damn piano like that, you wouldn't put yourself through that shit in the first place,
Right.
But
Right.
yeah,
It,
you may never
it's
get another piano like this. So, like,
right.
put yourself through this shit. It's still worth it.
Well, and then also the mystery, like the creepier Teddy Perkins gets, he's also dropping breadcrumbs about his brother, who's a famous jazz musician, who Darius is a fan of. So it's like, oh, I can learn more. Like, oh, you have all these pictures of your brother with famous people. Oh, we're going to talk about Stevie Wonder and that. And it's kind of an enticing conversation to have, but never quite grounded. Especially when the guy cracks open an ostrich egg on the coffee table in the middle of the conversation.
I can't. I wish I could like put my finger on it a little bit better. It's like the money versus the not money aspects of it, because like Lakeith Stanfield is there for the piano, and there's that like obscene aspect to eating a fucking ostrich egg. Like, who does that? Like that probably cost an obscene amount of money. Doesn't even taste any good. It looks gross, but like the indulgence of it,
Yeah, I think that was one point, kind of the Venn diagram crossover between horror and comedy, of tension and defying expectation and misdirection can be played at the same time. And that moment to me felt like that was a little bit of a break for us.
Yeah.
Instead of like this sort of looming creepiness of Teddy Perkins to that big goofy egg. When now I'm kind of broken out of the suspense of what this guy's motivations are, because he has stopped to deal with a gooey, disgusting, giant, soft-boiled egg. But then also, it's hilarious. It's hilariously big, and the fact that he's like trying to offer him a little bit as he's like scooping it out with his finger. Like, this has become. That's something I would have expected to see like in Dumb and Dumber also.
Yeah.
And just in a different context, that would have been ridiculous. In this case, it's slightly just menacing and says that this character is more off the wall.
I'm probably going to bring this up. I'm definitely going to bring this up several times, but Stephen King's Dance Macabre, he spends the whole book discussing horror and horror that he loves and why it works the way that it works. And one of the things that he brings up over and over is that the reason you find so many successful horror movies having a sense of humor is that the two emotions are actually remarkably close together. So if you have good tonal control, you can like oscillate back and forth between them. And that's, I mean, I think that's the reason you get all those Lynchian comparisons when it comes to Atlanta as well, because it'll bring in things that, in Dumb and Dumber, we would recognize, okay, this is just a bit. Yeah. But in this context, it's a bit that feels weird and wrong, which I love, I
have another fun fact that's probably going to make you feel the oogies about this as well. Apparently, Donald Glover went full method, and while they were filming this episode, he stayed in. As soon as he got into makeup, he stayed in makeup and in character the whole time.
It's really interesting to me how much that's clearly hitting something very deep for him. Like there's clearly something way deep inside him that he's getting out with this Teddy Perkins character, and I wonder if he himself quite knows. Was that also Donald Glover, the bandaged guy?
I don't know. I should really think it wouldn't need to be.
Yeah. They've set up the tone really well, I think, so that you're I mean, I was pretty much leaning toward him just being crazy. And then
sure.
Out of nowhere comes bandage guy, so clearly he is actually around and he is actually sick. Or something. I mean, he's bandaged up for some kind of reason.
But we'll never know now.
We'll never know now.
But yeah, that's why I thought. I think it's probably what you were thinking as well. Putting this one first is just setting that tone, like easing into a nearly bloodless horror that's more atmospheric. Yeah,
nice easing. Which is why Mirror Mirror was really fun.
Had you seen that before?
I had never even heard of that before.
Really?
What a weird movie. Holy shit. But also like Mundo respect for starters for like the old school goth look, like the really old school goth look. Like you don't see a lot of that on film, pretty much
I
ever.
I joked that the lead actress Rainbow Harvest
Mhm.
looked at that time a lot like Tina Fey, and all of her goth looks. It's just Tina Fey in black eyeliner,
Mhm.
and I can dig it. The first time I saw this, I was really surprised. Because just the cover art, the synopsis, I thought I was going to get into something kind of cliche,
Sure.
and it was going to be like a popcorn horror movie. It's a lot better than it presents itself.
Especially given, I mean, they clearly did not have a lot of money to make this thing with.
And I think
This
they
was
leaned into
very-
that so well. I was so pleased that the mirror never came to life with goofy, like under budget claymation or something, or
Yeah.
that a demon walked out and tried to talk to her directly and try to be its own character.
There is that sort of demony looking thing that does emerge at the very, very end and then like goes back in.
Yeah.
Which like that's all they do with it. Most of the time it's just like creepy noises and little blood drops, which works pretty well, I think. That's the way to do it on budget horror anyway, you know.
It gave me the impression that something was emanating from the mirror,
Which is
without
what they
having.
were after.
Yeah, and then it could stay mysterious because it was maybe a claw, maybe a face or something. It made things imperfectly, that it was like the classic monkey's paw kind of thing where you grant
Right.
wishes, but in the worst possible way of, oh, I want to see my dad again. And at one scene, a corpse, her dad's corpse comes through the mirror, but now animated.
Yeah, that one really got to me, that scene. It's
I also liked that it was a descent into madness.
Yeah, and like a very witchy, it feels like a predecessor to movies like The Craft, where
Mhm.
it's, you know, in the 90s when witchiness became very trendy and like the thing that alternative women did.
Yeah.
It feels like a very early, like halfway there version of that. Because she's becoming a witch basically in a very Buffy style way, but like
Oh,
in this way that's also
oh,
too
I-
she's connected to the mirror at the same time, you know.
right. But I really got the feeling that it was that sort of seductive power where the
Yeah,
person being seduced gains power but has no control over it.
sure.
They are tricked into thinking they have control.
That's part of what I do actually love about it is that ambiguity. I like to think she had control until she's like, no, fuck this. This is too far. But until then, it seemed like the mirror was just giving her whatever she wanted, or not
Yeah.
necessarily whatever she wanted, because the guy that she was trying to sleep with wouldn't stay. Like he tried to leave, but the mirror did
Uh-huh.
kill him and then swallow his body for her. So
Yeah. Yeah. That was a great moment in oddly 1990 exploring consent, and a guy being like, you know what, I'm not feeling this. I think I want to leave. And the girl possessed by a mirror is like, you are going to stay and make out with me or you're going to die.
die.
Mirror would be a great metaphor for addiction.
Absolutely.
It's actually corrupting you.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Actually, that makes sense, because I was seeing it through a very witchy, like you get what you want, but you have to commune with Satan kind of an
Sure.
approach.
And that holds up. My allusion
That's true.
to drug addiction or some kind of obsession or addiction was sort of that it wasn't her choice. She was kind of lured in by the influence of the mirror, and then it worked her up. It gave her a little bit here, a little bit there, and kind of seduced her over time.
Yeah, I can totally see that, which I think they reinforced with like my favorite scene in the whole thing is that one scene where the blood's dripping down and she slowly approaches the mirror and then just like delicately licks that drop of blood.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
blatantly for the seduction aspect there. For
Oh man. Just
I kind of loved it though. It's like old school goth. It just feels appropriate. You're gonna make out with the blood mirror. That's what you do as a goth. As much as you can kiss a mirror, you're gonna kiss the mirror if it has blood on it. Blood and skulls.
I loved Karen Black, who's in a lot of fun horror movies, showing up as Megan's mom. Karen Black reminded me of Jennifer Coolidge in this. I really would,
Totally. I
would love
I
to
had to
swap
look her
out.
up because I'm like, this is too early for Jennifer Coolidge, but she's
Hmm.
like, this is very familiar. I feel like I know this person. But yeah,
Just the tact
I'd
she was
seen it.
taking
I
with
was
like
fun.
the self-involved mother was.
Hmm. That and like the best friend was apparently I recognized her from something. I couldn't determine what it was, so I looked it up, and apparently she was the lead actress in Janie's Got a Gun music video. That's what she's
Oh,
from. And like
okay.
I was so obsessed with that as a teenager. I'd watched it 20,000 times and it's like, "Oh, okay, this is why I recognize her."
It's an 80s movie
Hmm.
through and through, but it definitely
Absolutely.
shows that cusp of the 80s
Hmm.
didn't really end until maybe 82, or sorry, 92.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's one of my favorite things about like we like to think about those decades as being very evenly split, but there
Mhm.
was a lot of spillover in between, like things evolve, people like their styles, they keep their styles for a long time after.
Mhm.
The 90s hangover lasted until like 2009. Could still see a lot of 90s fashion and all that shit everywhere,
That's
you
true.
know?
That's true. And you were talking, but before we started recording, you had mentioned that you noticed some correlations or some mentions of Carrie in Mirror Mirror.
Yeah, it's the I can't remember which character. I should have like saved the scene, but one of the characters in there said, I'm not doing anything terrible to her. It's not like I'm throwing pig's blood on her." And I'm like, "Oh, look at that.
Oh, cool.
That works out well."
Yeah, and the whole idea of, I mean, another lens to look at it through is female empowerment as
Mm,
you transition from being an adolescent into an adult, and sort
mhm.
of that period of time where you're coming into your own and figuring out how you can push back and not be told what to do and be independent and get what you want.
Mhm.
Um, which
Carrie.
segues very well into Carrie,
Carrie
who,
always. Oh God, I love this movie so much, so
please
much. I
tell
don't
me.
even care that it's got like 70s cheese and it makes choices like when Carrie and Tommy are on the dance floor and the camera spins around and I think they're on a turntable.
Yes, and it's
And you
way
get
too
all the
fast.
sparkly stars and shit. Like it's technically dated, but I think in a way that actually enhances the emotion of the thing, like even the cheesecake stuff in the first scene where everything's filmed in slow motion and you get the gratuitous shot of the thighs and like I don't even fucking care.
Oh, well, see, that was one of my first notes. I was like, what the fuck is going on with this indulgent thing? And
That's
I
exactly
watched.
what it looks like it is. Here is what is she supposed to be? 16, I think, 15, 16. And she does not know what's going on. And then everybody's immediate reaction around her is to treat her like a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
And
Well,
to immediately react like, why are you so stupid? You know?
yeah, that
Like
was
instead of just,
very cruel.
how do you not know? And then even the gym teacher's
In the dream,
reaction in the
yeah,
office later was like, I wanted to slap her too.
and
Which
she did.
is just, like,
What what I got from that, especially when they start to zoom in and do the close-ups of
Hmm.
Carrie bathing herself,
Mhm.
all the lead up to that, I was like, this is unnecessary. This
Yeah.
is kind of gross. Why are you doing this? And then when you see the blood starts running down her leg, I'm realizing, okay, that was the supposed misdirection of her innocence, her purity, or whatever, has now been broken because here's blood on that. I'm like,
Mm.
all right, yeah, that technically is what you did.
That's the have their cake and eat it too thing, that it really didn't need to be like 5 or 6 shots of topless girls running around before they got to that. Like,
And also, every time I see that, one, it's not true at all, but it's also absolutely ridiculous that self-conscious young women are just topless in their underwear running around in a locker room with abandon, because
yeah.
it's the most fun thing to do, to be naked around other girls in a gross public school locker room.
They feel so totally comfortable in their
Oh my
mid-teens with their
goodness.
bodies. They just love to
Yeah.
run around topless. That's just how it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part is I'm very glad that that kind of stuff is phased out. But like the rest of it, Sissy Spacek especially, and like this will be a side topic in a minute, but I do love what Sissy Spacek brought to it. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
fragility to her But if you dig deep enough, there's also a strength in there. And that's Carrie. That's who you want to be Carrie. You can see why people, shitheads, want to bully them.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, you can see where she would have snapped and not just like, oh, fuck all you guys, I'm leaving, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make the doors go closed and burn you all alive. Fuck you
Mm-hmm.
to that degree, you know?
I think they did a good job of painting the world to show like that had
Mm-hmm.
been her life in varying
Yeah,
degrees.
the graffiti like on the gym
Oh
wall or
man,
the gym
yeah,
door. Yeah.
just shaming.
Yeah. And it's
And the teacher's
the,
also kind of shaming her, like when she gets released to go home that day and going to the principal's office, and that fucking guy
the
gets
fucking
told
guy.
4 times that he said her name wrong.
And he just didn't care. And the degree to which he didn't care is just such a perfect illustration. I will forever love Stephen King for no other reason than that he wrote it exactly like, I mean, when you're a girl not taken seriously to that degree, that's exactly
Mhm.
how little care the world shows you, you know?
Oh, and not just from the outside world, but then at home with her mother,
Mm.
not listening to her, not seeing her as a unique person.
Also, the freaky Jesus closet, which I think the little Jesus figurine will forever be in my head, and his weird ass reflective eyes.
Yes,
Creepy
those
little fucker.
I realized right off the bat that was somebody else, and so I had to dig deep to find out that it was actually Saint Sebastian, um,
Oh,
who was I guess he was a big, strong Roman military officer who was also secretly a Christian when that was not allowed, and worked
oh.
to shelter and convert people to Christianity, shelter Christians and protect them, and then was sentenced to death by firing squad. So that's why he shot up full of arrows. It didn't work. He like got healed or recovered, and then once he got his strength back, went straight back to whoever was in charge and said, "Fuck you, you're wrong. You can't be oppressing Christians," and then was properly killed for
Wow.
his impotence. He's a big figure because symbolically, it's really easy to spot him. Lots of saints are just guys or ladies. None of them are covered in arrows, so you can spot Saint Sebastian. And for that reason, and this is going somewhere, for that reason, his portraits became more and more popular, like in the Renaissance and in earlier pieces of art, because you could spot that saint. He became a saint that protected against plague. So when the plague hit, everyone's praying to Saint Sebastian. So it's a good thing he's recognizable. Also, artists started painting him not so much as what we would think of as a big, like muscly, brawny, bearded soldier, but more of like a physical ideal, like the perfect male, and somewhat sensually. So over time, Saint Sebastian's also become a gay icon because he's depicted so beautifully. And so people who appreciate the male form spot this guy real easy, and it's easy to remember who he is because he's covered in arrows. So
I've seen this movie 10,000 times. I didn't know that.
part of why they chose Saint Sebastian was the way the Carrie ends in the book is she slowly slows down her mother's heart and kills her that way. They're like, that is doesn't work visually. We need something bigger. We'll do flying knives. So riddling her with knives reflects Saint Sebastian being riddled with arrows.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Which, yeah, I mean, speaking of...
Which makes Carrie's mom a gay icon.
I mean, I could see it. Piper Laurie.
No,
that totally work. 1,000%.
Right. Sure.
But yeah, I mean, speaking of the book, that's another one of my favorite little Carrie bits is like, so he famously tried to write it and then threw it away, and then his wife Tabitha rescued it from the trash, Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, there's something in here, you should continue to write it, until he based it off of two girls that he knew in high school, both of whom actually killed themselves.
Oh, no.
And in one interview, and for the life of me, I tried to find it because it's etched in my brain for the rest of my life, but I could not find it. He said he remembered one of the guys that he knew who knew one of the girls who killed herself. She killed herself with a shotgun, and the guy told Stephen King she did it like a man, first good thing she
Oh,
did in her life.
oh, fuck that guy.
Which one reason I think that I love Carrie as much as I do, aside from it being an excellent story, which it
Mm-hmm.
is it when with that added context, it feels like Stephen King writing a revenge story for real life people who didn't get one. You know?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Because that's, I mean,
Oh,
none of the
that's
real
so
girls
beautiful.
had telekinesis. They're not going to be able to do something like that. If that happened in real life, you're just getting dumped in pig's blood and you're walking out of that place humiliated, and that's that, you know?
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I
So,
like that. Revenge for people who deserved it but never got it.
which is another reason that I like, I sent you this illustration in your email of the book
Oh,
accurate Carrie,
I'm gonna look at
and
it right
she
now.
looks like we all know girls like this. Like I was a girl like this, you know, like this is how girls who wind up bullied by other girls tend to look, just very like nondescript and round and doughy a bit. Did you get it?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like the pock marks, the acne, the limp hair,
Mm-hmm. The
like
kind of the kind of affected posture,
mhm,
from
sort
covering
of
her
slumpy
face
thing.
and hiding herself and trying to be
Hmm.
as minimal as possible.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
1000% I see myself in that, and it hurts a little bit to look at it, which is part of what makes that horror movie so effective, I think,
Mm-hmm.
because it's what she did is justified by the narrative. How often do girls like that get stories like that, you know?
Right. Right. I want to say that unnatural bullying, but sadly, it's
Very
very
normal. Yeah,
common.
I mean, I
Yeah.
I had a fuck ton of that when I was in junior high, to the point where halfway through 8th grade, my mom pulled me out of school and homeschooled me for the last half of 8th grade,
Oh,
because
Kristen.
it was so bad that like I would go and they had shit nicknames for me. I'd get shit thrown at me, you know.
Fuck those girls.
Yeah, no, they were pieces of shit, but also
We need to go
like
back in time and give you some telekinesis.
but I think that that's it. It did a lot of good for me in the sense that I survived it. I didn't carry myself in the
Yeah.
way that the real life girls did, and it made me a way better person for having survived it and
Mm-hmm.
realizing that that's not, nobody should endure that, you know. So
I hope those girls, not I'm not wishing bad things on them, but I hope something
I
uh,
mean,
opened their
I
eyes
can I can look
to.
them up on Facebook right now, and I can tell you every one of them had 2 to 5 kids, and their Facebook profiles are their wedding pictures, and they're all unhappily married. And so I feel like that's revenge enough. Because I wouldn't want that life, but I don't think they do either. I think they feel like they had to take those lives because that's certainly how they come across.
I don't know
So
where it
fuck it.
comes from. One of my favorite quotes is, "Living a good life is the best revenge."
Exactly.
That that
1000%.
the shitheads didn't win. They didn't bring you down. You didn't turn into what they called you.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and
Yeah.
they failed.
Mhm. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was all self hatred projected outward, I suspect, you know, which it usually is with a lot of bullies.
I'm gonna post. So I'll just let
Mm.
everybody know, when I'm watching these movies and doing research and finding articles, I usually cut and paste those onto the Miscellaneous Film Festival podcast Facebook page, so you can go check out articles and pictures. This one Christian just sent me of the book accurate Carrie. I'm going to post that on Facebook right now. Oddly, this this girl it's an illustration of Carrie,
Hmm.
from the shower scene to her discovering her powers, to going to prom in a red dress, to being covered in blood, and then finally stabbed in the back at the end. This series of pictures of Carrie looks a lot like Susan Myers. She was a young actress who was in a TV movie called The Spell, which came out the year after Carrie, and it's about a young woman who is bullied in high school and
Yeah.
seems to have telekinetic powers. And I found this completely by accident a couple nights ago, not from researching Carrie. Just it stumbled upon it, started watching this movie. Like, this is Carrie.
I can see it. I can totally see it.
I think I found it for free on YouTube somewhere or Tubi. The spell, they say they started writing it and started getting it in production before Carrie went into production. So it's just coincidental that it happened to be the same thing, or that stories like this were going around at the time. Man, it's so close to Carrie. I think that they switched a lot of things up. If they really did start it earlier, they tried to copy later.
It's likely. I mean, it was a best-selling book for like 2 years before the movie came out, I think. So I'm sure they probably did.
Yeah. I think the spell is worth watching as like a double feature with Carrie. I would characterize the spell as being a little bit more from the mom's point of view.
Wow.
And also you get to see baby Helen Hunt as the lead girl's little sister.
Wow. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch that. I'm gonna give that a look.
Yeah. The other thing I stumbled upon, Carrie the musical.
Which is a weird.
Have you seen it?
It's a weird. I have not.
There's a link on our Facebook page, and I will send you a link later so you can watch it. Carrie, the Broadway musical, was written in 1988 by Lawrence Cohen, who wrote the original script.
88.
Yeah, I know. It failed awfully, and then was revived, I think, in like 2002, and that's or 12 or something. That's when the version I saw on YouTube was recorded. And it looks like he leaned really hard back into the book as primary material, because it has the framework of the musical is the character of Sue, like the one mean girl who kind of
takes it back and then
tries
makes
to
Tommy take her to the prom, and the only one who survives, and
right. So it's sort of framed of her being interviewed about what supposedly happened in town. She's like, supposedly everyone died. What do you mean supposedly? And goes back and forth from the ad actress being in a spotlight, kind of giving us narration that would be missed.
Wow. I'd only heard of this thing in the last couple of years, so I figured it was like Heathers the musical and a few other things that have been like, I think there's a Beetlejuice the musical now too. Yeah.
Betty Buckley plays the mom in the musical.
Okay.
And does a really good job.
Is there a recorded version of this? I want to see this.
Yep.
Wow.
I found it on YouTube. I posted it to our Facebook, and I will send it to you after this. You can watch it. I honestly was researching as I was watching Carrie, found this, and as soon as Carrie ended, I went right into some behind the scenes footage and then into the musical.
Nice.
So the musical, and I was really waiting to see how you're going to stage a bucket of blood falling on somebody on stage, and they do it, and they pull it off.
Yes, I hope that there were audience splatters.
What I liked about the musical that I felt was a little bit missing from the movie was getting an "I Want" song from Carrie to get what she wanted. I really felt like in the movie, I didn't know what Carrie really wanted. If she had ambitions outside of her life, or if she was resigned to it, or just beat down into it. When Tommy, honestly, I know he's trying to be a good guy, and he's trying to win her over for the sake of appeasing his girlfriend, but he does nag her into going to the prom with him. He does pressure her and cajole her into going to the prom, and then it seems like she's so excited to get to do this, and I didn't feel that connected. Like, was that really what she wanted? She felt like she was dreaming of going to prom with just anybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's maybe it comes from being it's a boomer approach to the problem for sure.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
I think it comes from being like the bullied girl in school. Girls know from like the age of when you can first articulate shit that being desirable is being worthwhile as being seen as a human. So
Right.
I read in the movie her constantly turning him down, not because she doesn't want it, but because she thinks he's fucking with her, just
But
like
she
everybody
has
else.
every reason to think so. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
been given a life of reinforced lack of self-worth,
yeah.
that this
So
can't be happening
I
because
think
she
it was
doesn't deserve it.
less Carrie's dream to go to the prom.
Right.
I'm sure,
Yeah.
and more Carrie's just desire to be wanted. And I think that's part of the charm of the end of that scene and the tragedy of it, the
Hmm.
way that it goes, the way that it does. I think that Tommy really starts to like her as a human toward the end, which
Yeah.
is actually kind of lovely, you
Yeah.
know. Like
It,
if that had gone well, who knows what that would have done for her life,
I mean, I'm sure there would have been a little bit of a letdown finding out the truth,
Mm,
but it still could have been lovely. What I got from it was um that that big climactic scene was so good that we just had to get there somehow.
yeah.
And we didn't have time. We didn't have time to somehow establish that Carrie dreamt of some boy. She had crushes on some boys. Maybe didn't have to be Tommy specifically, but that was
Yeah.
a little bit missing for me.
Yeah. I mean, this may be unique to just some of us, but I know that when I was like 13, 14, 15, I didn't feel like I could have crushes on guys like Brad
Mhm.
Pitt or whatever. Like it's just not a thing that girls like me, quote unquote, get to have, you know? So like I can see the movie doesn't come out and say it, and so it's probably a lot of me like projecting
Mhm.
shit that I saw, but I can very much see Carrie just being like, let me just survive this. Let me just
Yeah.
endure this and be in a place where things are too terrible. And that is the entirety of my want. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not even sure the Carrie that we meet knows that's an option at the
Mhm.
start. I think she only starts to figure it out because she gets asked to the prom. It might be the first nice thing that's ever happened to her, you know?
Yeah. That's what I liked in at least there's just one song in introduction in Carrie the Musicals establishes that she's having those normal feelings of like, oh, I would like to crush on somebody, but I can't because it's bad. My mom says it's bad. I
Mm,
can't. And then leading to that motivation of how much her mother has instructed her how to feel,
mm-hmm,
and that's what she's breaking away from. That's what she's pushing back against.
mm-hmm.
The performance of Piper Laurie
Oh,
was amazing, and
amazing.
one of the behind the
Especially in
scenes.
that last little bit when she's coming down the stairs and she's laughing and her head's just kind of rolling around. She's doing a cross with the fucking knife. Ah,
She lost her mind so convincingly. It's a thing that a lot of actors kind of fall short on,
mm-hmm.
of just, oh, you're just gonna start cackling and start being unpredictable and random.
Yeah.
But she did the right move, which is to become very focused and lose
Yes.
yourself in something that's not there.
Yes.
And it's funny to learn that when she was cast and first read the script, she thought, or somehow was given the impression, that this was a black comedy, that this was supposed to all
Ah,
be very dark in tone and funny. And so she was a little bit like playing it to the back row, being a little bit
that
extra,
explains. Yeah, that
sort of
explains
a
the
counterpoint.
campiness of it.
Yeah, yeah. And I didn't see camp at all. I saw religious fervor, and
Which is why it works, because as somebody gets to that level of fanaticism, they're not going to be much different.
she was disconnected.
That's a
Yeah.
good segue.
Oh, what do you got? Hit me with it.
Shit, I
Oh,
lost it already.
being isolated and
No,
disconnected.
okay.
Which,
Religious fanaticism.
yep.
Rosemary's Baby. That's all I got.
I mean, that is a fanatical cult of
It
folks
is.
in that building who, oh man, this movie, Rosemary's Baby,
It's
1968.
yeah.
It hurt
It's
my
like,
soul watching this.
oh my god. It ages even better every time I rewatch it, but in ways that make it work as horror, but
Mm-hmm.
also
Mm. It, to me, I kept watching it being like, if it weren't for the satanic cult and
yes,
the real occult magic
yes,
happening in this movie, if it weren't for that, this is such a realistic story of
yes.
control and manipulation and abuse.
That's part of what makes it work is like you take out the Hail Satan and scene
Mm-hmm.
silliness,
Mm-hmm.
which don't get me wrong, I love it. But if you take it out, it's just the horror of how the world treats pregnant women, which everybody has control over your destiny and your future except for you. And nobody is listening to you. Nobody's
Mm-hmm.
taking you seriously. You don't even get to eat what you want. You don't
Mm-hmm.
get to do anything.
And every time your husband just ignores you,
yeah,
just even that little thing, much less the shouting and the manipulation
yeah,
and sexual assault that
yeah.
he
And the
participates
just
in.
the
And then he
joke,
just brushes it off and says,
he
I
just
am
brushes it
sorry.
off, and so
Here's
does
roses.
she, because it's so, I mean, it's the fucking 60s, it's normalized. Like that's just how you have to, oh, okay, I guess he got a little rough and fucked me while I was asleep.
Oh my goodness. The thing that really hurt me about that scene was kind of how well it was done. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
want something more to come from it, and it's that lack that is the impactful thing, and
Yes,
the veracity of that.
yes,
That she was just like, what? She just says, you did it while I was asleep, like you didn't even ask or something. And he goes,
yeah,
yeah, I couldn't wait, I was just so enthusiastic.
yeah. And don't worry, I
And
filed him down, and that's the extent of his comments
his
on that.
nails, because she's covered in the scratches
The
of
scratches.
actual Satan's claws.
And that's the thing about, like, I mean, even my early relationships had a lot of that stuff because it's so normalized in heterosexual culture. You don't
Yeah.
realize that you
Nope.
have the ability to say no. You
Yep.
don't realize, you know?
Yep. And some guys will just barrel ahead and not think twice about
And to
anybody's
them, it's
feelings.
funny because there's no consequence, you know? Which is, it's what
Oh
makes it work
man.
as horror. I'm sorry to like bum you out, Jason.
No, yes, that's what makes it work as horror. That's what makes it horrible as it
Yep.
works in real life. I don't know if I articulated this well enough in my notes. Some of the scenes are such great examples of patriarchal thinking and misogyny that I felt like, if you isolated them and, like we said, took out the Satanism and the real magic, but with that in, it made me kind of stop and reconsider Guy's motivations in some of those moments. It makes me wonder if a deeper motivation would have been something like, I don't want to yell at her. I'm not mad at her. I have to keep her from leaving. I have to scare her into not leaving. So I'll do a red panda and I'll make myself big and loud.
But that's part of what I love about it, actually, is like Cassavetes makes a fucking great villain. For starters, like he's so slimy, but he's slimy in a way that's like very grounded and normal, which he does in other things too. And I like that because, I mean, let's see if I can articulate it well. So, the fact that he's doing it for self-interest doesn't change. I think it wouldn't make him less of a villain or more of a villain if he was just doing it because she was his wife and he wanted control over that. It's the fact that he's doing it for his career doesn't make it any less gross. He could still be behaving exactly the same way and just be doing that because she's carrying his kid.
Yeah. I did spend the whole movie absolutely in love with Ruth Gordon as Minnie.
It made me want to rewatch Harold and Maude, which I've been meaning to get back to for a few years because I love her so much. I love her so much, and she's overplaying it in this very self-aware way, where she's just being a little too broad in a way that makes her feel creepy, but in a way that's also very easy to dismiss as invasive old bat. You know,
just drink the smoothie. Just drink the smoothie. Whatever. It's just nothing. I don't even
so New
care.
York in her approach, and the loud outfits, the loud makeup, like it's all
But
it's such a smart choice on her part. I just love her so much.
but I loved it. And her interactions with her husband, he's so classy and so collected. And she's whatever, just all over the place.
Sometimes I wonder how you got to be leader of anything. Which actually becomes a funny line when you realize, like, they're leaders of a Satanist cult, and she's still berating him like a fucking New York housewife. I love it. So, yeah.
And I did appreciate that at the end we get a little glimpse of the baby, and they didn't go too far. Like this day and age, you would have had like a full CGI.
Oh God,
baby.
the way they handled that. It's so smart, because you see the tiniest bit, but most of what you see is Rosemary creeping up to the crib with the knife and then backing up in horror and going, "What did you do to his eyes?" Which just allows you the space to imagine what the fuck must be in that thing.
Yeah.
You know?
And Guy back in the corner cowering, like it's kind of over now. Like
I did it for us, honey. Yeah. Oh fuck.
Oh man. And that they leave it kind of open-ended as to her motivations, because she's faced with the challenge of the connection of motherhood to the baby she carried.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite pieces of it. Is I think a less smart story would have been like, fuck no, fuck all you guys, I'm calling the cops or whatever. But the fact that she wants to be a mother that bad, like this is,
and that she sincerely wanted that all along.
She wants so much that she's okay rocking to sleep Satan's child because she still gets to be a mom.
Something that plays out in the made-for-TV sequel that came out a few years
Does it?
afterwards. I ended up watching that. That was the most recent thing I've watched, because I wanted to have that in my head to bring up for this recording. 1976, same year Carrie came out. When did
Rosemary's Baby was 68, I think. So that's
68.
like 8 years later.
8 years later, we got a TV movie called This is the dumbest. This is failed from the start. It's called Look What's Happening to Rosemary's Baby.
Is that really the title?
Yes. It's almost like Look Who's Talking.
Oh my God.
But it like cuts ahead 6 years, and we see that she's been carrying on as basically mother / nursemaid to little baby Adrian, who's now I think 5 or 6 years old, in some kind of compound with the Satanists, and they've been trying to brainwash him, because it's the opening credits start with panning through little Adrian's room that's filled with little devil dolls and Nazi flags and things. And she's sitting there going, "Hey, we're gonna escape. And finally they break out.
No.
And somehow they get separated, and Adrian gets raised by this prostitute, apart from the cult, but also away from Rosemary. Rosemary is just written out of the script. And he grows up, and the whole rest of the movie is sort of that temptation thing of will he, won't he finally make the last move to become Satan, which is to kill someone. And he's tempted by friends, and everywhere he goes, it's the 70s, and he's going to dance parties and doing drugs and things, but he also doesn't want to be a bad person necessarily. And
oh my God, what a
it's
waste.
a waste of time. It's so stupid.
I feel like the real appeal, the real horror of that ending, and what could have been interesting to fully explore is like, I don't think she would care. Like it comes across like as long as she gets to be a mother and her baby is treated well, she doesn't particularly care. And that's a lot more interesting, I think.
Yes.
Like what would that kind of mother be? And so of course, like the whole cult is gonna like embrace Adrian and raise him upright because he's the son of Satan. So
and potentially elevate her as a conduit to molding him.
Yeah, she gets to be the sort of the evil version of the Virgin Mary. Like,
right?
That could be a really interesting movie to explore, you know.
Well, we won't get that, will we?
What a loss.
Nope. 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 Speaking of weird pregnancies,
Hey.
let's
Oh my God.
go into the Fly, where that was. So in the Fly, Gina Davis, who plays Ronnie, the love interest of South Brundle, played by a person whose name I can't remember right now. Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum.
Played by Jeff Goldblum. Has a, was it like a dream sequence where she imagines being impregnated?
She's already pregnant. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When she's pregnant, she's imagining giving birth.
She's pregnant. She's trying to get the abortion. She has the nightmare.
Yeah.
About
and it's
giving birth instead.
It's very Cronenbergish.
So Cronenberg, but also like
out.
I think it gets across the same idea that the chestburster scene in Alien is trying to get across, which is like abortion is preferable to that. Like
having
that
a
if you're a woman who wants to get an abortion and you're not allowed to, I think you feel a variation of that where it's like this thing in me, this alien thing that is not me but is in me and is feasting on my shit. Can come out of me and I don't want it. Like Gina Davis's like utter horror about like I don't want it. I don't want it in me. Get it out of me right now. I'm like that. I get viscerally. I get that. Yeah, I get it.
I will say that I'm gonna make a segue.
Okay, segue.
I will say this: The Fly is probably my favorite Mel Brooks movie.
Explain.
The Fly was produced by Brooks Films, with Mel Brooks is credited as a producer. Mel Brooks did, given that he was the producer, did come in and get involved. He spoke with Cronenberg. He was on set once in a while. At one point, he and David Cronenberg were just talking about the movie. And they're talking about that particular moment where Ronnie comes back and finds Seth with another woman. And they were kind of tooling around the script.
Was that a Mel Brooks line? Be afraid, be very afraid?
Yes.
It's so snappy. It's so...
Ronnie was going to say to the other woman, like, hey, don't be afraid. I'm going to help you get out of here. And Mel Brooks said, no. She should tell her to be afraid because it is a bad situation. And that's why she needs to get out of there. But
I feel like that's one of the most memorable parts, aside from the body horror, is be afraid, be very afraid. That was inescapable for a while there.
You forget which movie it goes to because it's just such a great line that could apply to almost every horror movie.
Yeah. Which is what really gets me about The Fly, because I haven't rewatched it in a while. I forgot how sweaty it is. It's like very sweaty and like surprisingly sexy. Like Jeff Goldblum is sexier than I remember. I don't remember him being that sexy in it.
I mean, wait, when was The Fly?
That was fairly early for him. I think that was
1986.
Park. That was like
just 7 years before Jurassic Park. So and that's like even before. I think Silverado was 87, and he was like kind of sexy in that, but like he's like blatantly so in this. Which we get
is
to see the boy. We get to see the boy grow up and mature into a hottie. Into an awkward, mumbly hottie.
It's fascinating. It's like he's got that weird sort of quirk that Christopher Walken does, where his line deliveries are so bizarre.
Yes,
but he does a thing Christopher Walken never did, where he definitely goes for that sort of that sensuality, or at least for a while he was. And that's what really like. Yeah, that paired with the body horror is a very interesting pairing to me, because they're both very much like the movie makes a big deal out of, right? Like of the flesh.
What I in my reading, what kind of became a stumbling block rewatching the movie was a lot of articles would talk about this movie being, especially at the time, 86, being allegorical of watching someone kind of be eaten up from the inside by a disease. Where I found a little bit of disconnect was the no disease or cancer was another thing they would talk about. Cancer doesn't make you feel like a superhero and make you sexier. It doesn't have that arc.
Totally. That's a big part of it. And I think that's kind of where the film falls down in terms of that metaphor, because it's also,
Yeah.
I mean, he only gets in the machine in the first place because he's jealous and he's got a load of hubris going on.
Hmm.
And a huge part of his downfall and the reason that he gets as fucked up as he does, especially at the end when he melds with the machine itself, is it's like it's all hubris. You know,
Right.
he thinks next time around he will fix it. He's so
Yeah.
smart. He's going to fix it this time. And
So
that's, you know,
I agree with you overall. That's what my interpretation was, that it's a
mm,
better metaphor for obsession or
yeah,
addiction. Addiction. Some people are like, oh, I feel so much
totally,
better. I feel so much greater. You need to do
totally,
this too. I need to grab
totally,
other people off the street and get them involved in this
totally.
too. But I guess I would definitely say the latter half of his nails and teeth and falling apart relates to diseases like cancer and HIV.
I could definitely see the AIDS piece in there. Yeah, for sure.
And where those two kind of meet up was seeing interviews with Gina Davis saying that she and David Cronenberg talked about this and decided, like, with her motivation was seeing it as a cancer or
Mm,
as HIV, where that's why she was so sympathetic and kept coming back, because she cared about him and wanted him to recover, or still wanted to see the person she was in love with inside,
yeah.
but behind all the trauma and deformation. But the movie itself and Cronenberg's motivation towards the gross and the gory, and Jeff Goldblum's motivation really seems more like you're saying, with hubris and
Yeah.
wanting to push things farther, and not having the self-awareness to stop, or
Hmm.
not taking the losses as losses, but just as
Hmm.
obstacles to overcome as he keeps pushing farther.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the disconnect there, I think, helps the movie in the end because Gina Davis needs to play it the way that she's playing it,
Mm-hmm.
even though the movie's not necessarily written to cater to that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the sorrow and the grief that we watch her go through, I think, is a big part of what makes the movie last to the degree that it does. Like, she genuinely feels the loss of him. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's, if I was given this script, the only thing that I would mess with is her fucking ex-boyfriend, Boss Creepo, who becomes like too much of a hero at the end. I forgot about that, and I'm like, no, wait, fuck this guy. I don't like this
I
guy at all.
know. It's that I found to be um a functionally a nice twist. This guy starts off being the worst chauvinistic piece of slime, but then when
The
push comes to
way,
shove,
yeah,
he's there to help her, and he's there to
yeah.
try and kill the bad guy and try and kind of be a hero. And with a little more care,
Mm.
that transformation might have, from a monster into more of a man, while Jeff Goldblum is
Oh,
doing the other way,
oh,
that might
yeah.
have been better. But honestly, I think what the compromise is I came here for gross, gory monster, and I didn't come here for human dynamics. And to get as much as we got was the compromise of, you'll get that much, but we're going to lean
Mm.
harder into the monster and the special effects.
That's such an interesting metaphor, though, and it's such an interesting companion metaphor. That feels like a really nice missed opportunity that I want to go back
Yeah.
in there and add now.
I also kind of feel that putting too much emphasis on those dualities takes
Mm,
away from uh,
true,
focus on Gina Davis's character, who is the
true.
kind of the constant person who's going. Well, Jeff Goldblum's going through the real big dynamic thing, but
Yeah,
so is Ronnie watching him
absolutely.
fall apart.
Yeah, and that's to get back around to the pupa giving birth to the pupa dream.
Oh, yeah,
Like, that is one thing that I appreciate the movie for, is like it could very much have just turned Ronnie into the love interest kind of person, and then she's just very sad, and that's her entire arc there. But
right.
it's so much more interesting and horrifying to have this extra, like, oh shit, this guy I'm in love with that I thought things were fine, I'm pregnant by him now, but he's also a monster, and nobody knows what that means for this thing that's in me, you know? Ah.
Oh, I just realized that if we're kind of looking at his transformation as an addiction or obsession or something, the idea that that was somehow passed on to her and that she needs to exercise that from her as she's getting away from him. Oh, yeah. All the baggage that comes from when you date hybrids, human fly hybrids. Don't do it. That's why I use Grindr and not Bumble, because Bumble runs the risk of some sort of insect hybrid man.
There might be a bumblebee on Bumble that is like half person. You never know.
You never know. Everyone lies anyway. Your profile pictures of a normal human man. Is this true? And do you have friends?
Somehow.
I'm sure that was all cleaned up and that all these dynamics were better expressed in The Fly, the opera from 2008.
No.
Which I also have a link to that I will send you. It's also on the Facebook page.
I mean, it could work, actually.
The Fly, the opera, directed by Placido Domingo. I could see it.
It's got the extremes that work for an opera.
I'm not a big opera fan. Can you elaborate?
I am entirely basing this off of Phantom of the Opera.
Okay.
That's most of my exposure.
Okay.
But I could see it working.
Yeah.
Within that impression that I have.
That actually works as like a parallel kind of story, as does Beauty and the Beast. Yep.
That could work.
As if Gaston made a turn and was coming to kill the Beast as because he genuinely wanted to save Belle and not just okay.
Instead of the Beast becoming like a hot dude, he just have pieces dropping off of him.
It becomes more of a beast. He turns into the Thing. Disney's The Fly. the next musical
now
thing.
Musical.
I think that's a good place to call it. I think that has been a fun exploration of not only 5 great pieces of horror from our grab bag, but a couple other movies and musicals that I'll probably put in the description of this video some links to those so you can indulge. One idea I have for a future film fest is there are a lot of movies turned into musicals, like that, things that were never ever musicals that become stage shows, like Groundhog Day and The Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Spamalot
counts. Yeah, so
I would be open to that.
All right, yeah, we'll see what we can slap together for that. But for now, thank you to everyone for listening. I've been Jacin,
and I'm Christen.
Have a great time, and we'll see you next time. If there was video for that, Christen just did something that was really fucking cool. And clap. And we're out.
Sometimes their hatred is out of control. God, how they hurt me. Mama says suffering is good for the soul. They hurt me. And if I could, I'd bring them all down to their knees. I'd make them sorry forever for teasing Carrie.